Greetings! So in today's video, I'll be taking a look at this watercolor kit from Lightwish. It has 128 colors. I think this is the largest set I've ever seen, so far anyway. And also I have a sketchbook, which I'm really eager to see. So I'm gonna open all this stuff up. Obviously, this one is in a box. It's quite heavy. I really did not expect it to be this heavy. Alright, so this is a slightly bent swatch card. I'll try to flatten this a bit. The box is unfortunately slightly dented. And a pack of paper. Okay, so let's check this box first. Pretty straightforward system for opening it. Inside, oh wow, there's a lot of stuff, really, as to be expected, but I don't think I've ever seen a set this big before, so I'm kind of shocked. Alright, where to start? Let's start from the top. There isn't any info on the box about what's in it, but obviously here I have a selection of metallic colors, a pencil sharpener, a round brush, a mop brush, a pencil, an eraser, and a little sponge. I'm just curious to see if I can remove the insert in some way. With a bit of tinkering, I think I can make the lid straighter again since the insert can be removed. The insert itself is thin plastic. Alright, the bottom part, there's this really handy separator. I don't know if you're meant to keep it or remove it, but I'm really tempted to keep it because I like this protection, so that if anything is too watery, it doesn't necessarily go straight into the other side. But let's remove it for a second. So here we have mostly regular colors, except for these 6, which are neon colors, obviously. This insert appears to be the same plastic as the top insert. While I much prefer to have a quill, I think this space was probably designed to hold a water brush. Yeah, it holds really well when you have a water brush in there. The quill doesn't fit as nicely in this insert, but like I said, I much prefer having a quill because that's the kind of brush I prefer. But it's interesting to note that a water brush can fit in there. I'll leave it there just for simplicity's sake. So that's the box. It came with a pack of sheets that I think is really interesting. They're cut to match the size of the box, which is a clever packaging idea. But also, I like it because it's already a proportional size to the paints in it. So if I do swatch card to keep with the set, I will do them on this paper. And then let's take a look at this. Quite intrigued. Oh, that's so cool! It's a binder! With watercolor paper. Oh, wow! Oh, that's really clever. And you have a strap for a... It's not quite tight enough, but yeah, a strap for a pencil or a brush. Here you can have other paper, other cards. This is PU leather, so polyurethane, I think. Ugh. It's a bit hard to pop open. There we go. This is such a fun idea. I don't know if I put them the right side or the wrong side, but it kind of looks like both sides of the paper can be used, which is really great. This is such a fun idea. It's like a watercolor sketchbook binder. Has a few bits of paper stuck to it, but that's such a cool idea. I'm really I'm excited to try this out. This is fun. And I like that you can, you know, customize it eventually. So I'll get set up with everything. I'll prepare my swatch card. I'll also paint the swatch card that came with the set. I'll try to flatten it a bit. And I'll do some demo paintings. And I'll come back with my impressions on everything and share my thoughts with you guys. See ya in a bit. And I'm back with my swatches, palette, paintings, all of that. I'll take you through it. So if you remember, the set was the one that came in this little box. It's a set of 128 colors, so that's a lot of colors. This is what it looks like. Of course, this was not in there, but you had a brush, two brushes actually, like this. Metallic colors at the top here, regular colors at the bottom with some neons. It has a nifty separator like this. Now, before I forget, I want to mention rapidly that these have a bit of a smell to them when you wet them and then let them dry. I'm only mentioning this because I know some people are super sensitive to smells and they like to know when something has a smell or not. These have a faint smell to them. I've ended up making little lines on the paints in the bottom tray just as a guideline for when I was painting my swatches and also as a reference point when I'm trying to find a color. Because sometimes you can easily pinpoint color like, oh, I'm looking for this one or this one or this one. But when you're like, okay, I'm looking for one of these blue and I see it on my swatch, but which one, you know, like it's kind of easier if you have some little guides to reference. Everything I painted, I used these two brushes that came with the set. I had a great time working with the brushes. I think these are quite nice. These are very serviceable and I quite like this length of handle for brushes. I have small hands, so that was great. I asked about this set, and this set is targeted more towards students and beginners. And in that sense, I think it's a very serviceable set because you get all of these colors and there are so many of them that you don't really need to mix. And that's great because this set doesn't really have any mixing space. You can mix on this plastic, but it's a bit messy, and if you are prone to making messes, this is not ideal. And unless I'm missing something, there really wasn't any area for mixing. So most of what I painted with these, I either mixed directly on the paper or for a couple of occasions I took out a small mixing dish, but I really tried to work with the colors straight from the pan as much as possible or to mix them on the paper, and you'll be able to see how I fared. I think the colors that particularly impressed me were the metallics. Now, I'm glad they included this swatch card with the set. It's a very good reference, but it's regular cardstock paper, so it's possibly not the best paper to see these colors. So I put together my own little swatch display here, and I made it on purpose so that the metallic ones had a black patch on the swatch so that you can see the colors on a light and dark backgrounds, because some colors are, you know, almost invisible on white, but then you see them on the black background and you're like, oh, okay, so that's what happens. And I feel like it's useful information when it comes to metallic colors. I think these metallics are a lot of fun. You get a few different effects present within all of these colors. You have an interference color here. You have some that are a bit shinier. You have some that are kind of more duotone, meaning that they will look one color on the dark part and a different color on the light part. So that was interesting. The regular range of colors, so that's basically all of these except for these 6 neons. It's an interesting range of colors. There's quite a few colors that look very similar, and also there's a good number of them that will react to UV light. So that tracks with the set being more for students or beginners, meaning that the colors that react to UV light will be less light resistant. So the neon colors, you expect them to glow, that's perfectly fine. But when you look at all the other colors, there are a few, like here, these pinks, purples that have a bit of a glow to them as well, or pinks, and also I think a few of the metallic colors, possibly like this one here has a bit of a reactivity to the UV light. If you remember, I had put this extra brush pen in here because this compartment looks perfect for it, and I had an extra one lying around and I just thought it was a good idea to combine them. I ended up doing quite a few tests with these, so I did tests in this sketchbook that they sent me. And I also did paintings in my regular sketchbook on the cotton paper to see. But I really like this kind of sketchbook. I don't know what to call it because it is like a sketchbook, but it is presented more like a binder. You have these areas for cards or extra papers or whatnot. You have this loop that you can attach a pen to it. The binder is a bit difficult to open. So for my demo paintings, I did 2 paintings with the paper from this little binder sketchbook. And I did 2 because I wanted to test both sides of the paper. So technically one of these is flipped around. And I wanted to use both surfaces to see if there was really a difference. Now, I don't think there is much of a difference. I feel like the papers reacted in a very similar way. They took to my masking tape decently well too, so I had taped borders around these images and was able to peel off the tape without much of an issue. And then in this one, I painted this little spread here. So I did a kind of item layout, flat lay, and then a little scene here. I tried to use some of the sparkly paints in there to add a bit of fun. And the paints were a lot of fun to use. I would fully say that they are indeed for beginners or for students or for kids. They work well. You can paint illustrations with them, but they also have quite a few shortcomings that might annoy you if you try to push this further. One of the things is that they tend to be quite opaque and have kind of this milky film to them. And you can see some of it over this image because the lines are a bit subdued. I inked this with a black pen, but the lines are kind of a dark gray. And that's because when I painted the base for this image, I put paint all over and the paint dried but left this kind of film. It's not something you can really feel with your fingers, but visually it's there. And then the other thing that I noticed is that some of the paints will have a bit of a weird texture in drying. You kind of get a flocculation separation effect that happens, but kind of unpredictably or uncontrollably, which might not be ideal if you want to really make specific things happen on purpose in your paintings. But yeah, these were a lot of fun to use. I had a great time. I think the most fun part for me was this flat lay. I feel like this turned out the best. So I think these might be really good for people who like to paint in coloring books, possibly. But yeah, in terms of layering or adding shading or stuff like that, it's a bit more limited. So you have to either work really quick or to keep things really simple, because it won't be as forgiving if you try to add many layers and corrections on top of things. I really like these 2 brushes. They will probably be kept out of the set so that I can use them more often. I really like that they included both of these brushes. This one was really easy to use and quite compatible with the set. This one was a bit trickier to use because the pans are quite small and we don't really have any mixing area, but I was able to make it work. And like I said, I mixed almost everything was mixed on the paper. The only time that I mixed on a little mixing dish was when I prepared this blue for the sky, because I knew I had a larger area to cover. But then I realized that it didn't work all that well to try and mix it separately. So for everything else, I mixed directly on the paper. So you work like you want, but I would like pre-wet an area and then drop in some colors and move them around a bit, and all that was really easy to do with these paints. Would I recommend them for professionals? Not necessarily, but they would be a lot of fun for people who just want to play with some colors and have fun with them and have access to some interesting effects. I think as a kid, if I had these paints, I would have had a lot of fun with them. So I hope this video about these paints was instructive and somewhat helpful. I'll have the links to everything in the description below, the watercolor set, and also the sketchbook. So if you want to check it out, it's all going to be down there. I want to thank Lightwish for sending me this set to try out, and also I want to thank you guys for watching this video. See ya all in the next one. Bye bye.